I'm Chris Vitelli, Superintendent President of Merced College, and I support Black student success.
I'm Darren Otten. I'm the Superintendent President here at Copper Mountain College in Joshua Tree, California, and we proudly support Black student success at CMC.
My name is Dr. Erica Androjonis, Superintendent President of Pasadena City College, and we support Black student success.
Hello, I am Wes Lundberg, President at San Diego Miramar College, and I support Black student success.
Hi, I'm Sunny Cook. I'm President at Miracosta College. And here we love and support our Black students. We have an Emoja program, we have an A2 Men Club, we have a Black Alliance, which is our employees and community members supporting our Black students and making sure that they're advocating for what our students need. So we love our Black students at Miracosta College.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Black Hour. We thank you for being here with us. It is day 3 of Black Student Success Week. Have you been enjoying this year's webinar so far? If so, drop a comment in the chat. Let us know what has been your favorite session or what have you enjoyed the most thus far. Yesterday, we talked about ways and how you can support Black students' success through racially equitable state policy. In that, we learned the importance of supporting legislation that helps HBCU hopefuls, that offset out-of-state fees, and the need to repeal the travel ban. On Monday, day 1, we heard from our students who spoke truth to power, hailing from a variety of backgrounds, merging intersectionalities. They articulated the litany of ways they have experienced anti-Black racism, how it shows up in the classroom, how it permeates on the campus and lives throughout our system. These scholars informed us that they are the fabric of change, and it's they who are done surviving, they intend to thrive. Well, today, we're going to engage you from a pragmatic disposition. What I mean by that is today, specifically, our interests are not in conversation, but commitment. Our posturing is not primarily in theory, but duty. Our concern is less declaration and more demonstration. Today, specifically, it's not about your position or your profession. It is all about your production. Today, we will not live in an Eurocentric place. We will not be pontificating about pedagogy. Today, we are about the business and the clarity of evidence. Today's session will focus on supporting Black students on transition into livable wage employment opportunities and discuss the ways in which you, I, me, we can do better to support Black students transitioning into the workforce. Well, today I have my co-moderator, Katrina. Our good friend and host co-moderator, Dr. Bull, is traveling and he will return with us tomorrow. We also want to remind you, again, if you happen to miss any of the Black Hour webinars, there's a daily, we will have a visual illustrative summary detailing what was covered. You could find this on our Linktree website. Our sketch effect summaries is here to highlight themes and to just make it a visual summation of what we covered. We want to take a moment, as always, to thank our gold, silver, and bronze sponsors. This work cannot be done without your support. We also want to thank our sponsors because on Friday, there's a really, really huge announcement coming out for Black Student Success Week. Stay tuned. Again, thank you to our sponsors because on Friday, it's because of you that we are able to announce a really, 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 really big announcement. So you're going to want to be here on Friday. Stay up to date on news briefs, policy agendas. Go back and revisit the Black Hour webinars from last year or the year before that on our YouTube page, as well as our LinkedIn website located on our Instagram page. Well, we want to thank our partnership with Uber Eats and shout out today's winner, hailing from Santa Ana College, Kiona Jenkins. Enjoy lunch on us. Don't forget, you can still enter to win. Lots of prizes are being doled out every day. we're going to give you lunch on us. And if you haven't had a chance to get your swag, as you can see today, I'm rocking the all white crew neck, Black Student Success, the Black Hour crew neck. Still get your swag. We want to thank Dr. Pena over at Ventura College. He's the VP of Student Affairs. We see you. Also want to shout out Three Kings Lifestyle Boutique, who is our vendor who makes all our clothing. It is a Black-owned company. So we are doing this thing in a 360 cycle. We're making sure we put the money back in the community. We're making sure that we support Black student success, and we're making sure that we're advocating for what it looks like to put your money where your mouth is. Well, I'm excited for today. Today, we have a really, really, really nice agenda. Today, we have a presentation from Workforce Development on Black student success and transitioning into the workforce. We also have a presentation from the U.S. Department of Labor, Employment and Administration, Office of Workforce Investment. We also have a professional panel discussion, and we have a student panel discussion. Today is going to be a fire day. Our first guest to start us off is none other than Sandra Sanchez. Sandra Sanchez brings more than 28 years of experience in leadership, staff development, collaborative governance, and project management, both in the public and private sector. As interim vice chancellor, she is responsible for a portfolio of more than 1.2 billion. That's right, billion with a B, serving 116 California community colleges. Prior to the chancellor's office, interim vice chancellor Sanchez served as dean of academic affairs and dean of workforce and economic development at Los Angeles Harbor College. Shout out Los Angeles Harbor College, we see you. For 8 years, where she led workforce education and educational programs leading to certificate and degrees. Her commitment to accessible, affordable, and quality education has fueled her value of lifelong learning, and she has successfully run audit education, continuing education, virtual education, and emeritus education, corporate and customized training, and intergovernmental agreements at every institution she has served. She is most proud, though, of her efforts to assist underserved populations, first-generation college students, and other diverse populations needing support in college transition, retention, and workplace opportunities. Sanchez's leadership experience outside of higher education includes the private sector and early work in the California State Senate. Her work leading the Small Business Development Centers network in Los Angeles allowed her to assist thousands of entrepreneurs, women, and people of color to open, grow, and assess capital for their businesses. That's huge, y'all. Sandra has excelled in resource development by cultivating business and industry relationships, as well as those from philanthropic agencies. She creates win-win solutions with stakeholders while helping students, businesses, and communities thrive. Intern Vice Chancellor Sanchez is a native of Southern California. She holds a bachelor's degree in political science from the California State University in Long Beach and an MBA from the University of Redlands. With no further ado, let's give it up for Intern Vice Chancellor Sanchez.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure to join you. Today, I'm just going to give you kind of a brief overview from the statewide perspective of how what we're seeing, how employment opportunities are available or not available to Black and African American students. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So before, I dig into what we start discussing Black student employment, I thought I would start by reviewing the overall unemployment rate for African Americans across the state, in the context, of course, of the state's overall unemployment rate. So if you see this chart, what you can see is that we have broken down African American and Black unemployment rate by region in 2021. And we picked 2021 because that was the most recent year of data that we have available. So as you can see, the state's overall unemployment rate at that time was 5.2%, and the Black and African American overall unemployment rate was 13.2%. So in every region across the state, you can see that Black and African American unemployment rates are higher than the overall unemployment rate. We have a significant unemployment disparity that we must address as a community. If we don't, we are failing our students. But frankly, what this really means is we're preventing our overall economy from being as strong as it can be. Next slide, please. So, so now that we've seen the big picture, what do we know about our students who exit our system? Exiters, as we call them, are students who have been out of our system for at least a year and report in their job title and industry 2 years after leaving the community college system, whether they achieved a credential or not. So what we do is through CTOS, is what we call it, is a survey every year. We survey students across the system to understand what has happened to them post, not necessarily completion, but post any education that they've taken with us. What we have learned is that the exiters is that they're overrepresented in education and healthcare sectors, but underrepresented in other key sectors that are growing in our economy. In last year, we commissioned a national landscape analysis that revealed to us that programs that lead to higher wages are less available to students of color. And that's really important finding from that national landscape analysis, that we really need to start to think about and address how are we presenting opportunities for high skill, high wage employment careers to students on our campuses. What we do know is that there are high growth sectors such as information tech, renewable energies, and advanced manufacturing that lead to high wage opportunities. So what this information is telling us is that our colleges must play a bigger role in ensuring that our students are being connected to in-demand career sectors that they may not currently know about or have social capital, professional social networks that help them access those opportunities. And one of the ways that our campuses can start doing this is by creating a sense of belonging. And we can talk more about that later in the discussion. Next slide, please. Finally, in terms of wage attainment, what we're seeing for our Black and African American student exiters is that they're reporting wage gains of at least 48%, which is huge. So when they are coming into our system, they are seeing wage gains from whether they took just a few courses or they completed a certificate and degree. And you know, the disparities here in terms of the percentages has to do with the location. So you can see there's a regional high of 53% in the Central Valley and a low of 39% in San Diego and Imperial counties. What this could mean, though, is that you have lower overall salaries, so the percentages will appear higher. You know, overall, what this is a snapshot of our Black and African American student outcomes on employment and wages based on the survey that we do. Now, I will say that we could have better data if we had more participation from students who leave our system and respond to that survey. But this is what the information that we have now. The other thing this tells us is if we're going to end the unemployment disparity, what we have a lot of work to do, and that begins with creating, like I said earlier, a sense of connectedness, raising awareness of our career opportunities, providing hands-on training that gets our students on the path to a successful job and a career. So I am looking forward to sharing how the Chancellor's Office and our community colleges are working to support our Black and African American students to succeed in whatever they decide to do. So thank you, and I will turn it over to back to our MC.
Wow. Thank you, Intern Vice Chancellor Sanchez. That was some amazing information. Our next guest is none other than Jen Smith, who is Division Chief for the Division of Strategic Investments in the Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration's Office of Workforce Investment. In this position, Jen provides leadership in developing programs and policy guidance for the ETA's discretionary investments in skills training and employment programs. This division administers the Strengthening Community Colleges training grants, as well as portfolio of initiatives funded by the H-1B Technical Skills Training Grant Funds. In 2014, she was selected for a President's Management Council rotation, where she detailed at the Office of Management and Budget and Labor Branch. While there, she worked on the budget and policy issues related to the implementation of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. She's also served on the detail to the Senior Community Service Employment Program, supporting low-income senior citizens with job assistance. She has 20 years of diverse workforce development experience, including 4 priority populations, minority populations, focusing on in-demand industries and growing opportunities for apprenticeship. Jen received her Master's of Public Policy degree from the George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and graduated with a Bachelor's of Philosophy degree from the Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. Needless to say, she is an advocate and an ally for Black students and professionals in workforce development. I now give you Jen Smith.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Handy. I did not expect the full array of my bio to happen. I'm sorry, that was probably more information than anybody cared to hear. But I will say I'm very excited to be giving some brief comments after Vice Interim Chancellor Sanchez's comments, because there's actually a lot of alignment between what we're saying for us having developed them separately, which is great. And first, I just want to say, as Dr. Handy said, yes, absolutely an advocate for the work that you all are doing for this population and for the importance of community colleges as part of the workforce development solutions and strategies necessary to prepare our future workforce. So I'm very excited to be here. This is perfect timing. A lot of what you all are speaking to today and the topics are very relevant for what's happening at the Department of Labor right now. So I just wanted to give some highlights around some of the stuff that we're doing to support your work and hopefully leave you with some resources that can be of benefit to both community colleges themselves as well as some of the students. Next slide, please. First thing I wanted to do was just, again, building on some of the other information that you've probably heard this week, but just pulling some of the highlights from a recent grant opportunity we had around what the research tells us about some of the challenges and barriers that face some of our most historically marginalized students, including people of color. There are definitely significant disparities in participation in high quality career and technical education programs at community colleges. There's some research that shows program completion rates and earnings are lower for Black and Latina and Latinx students than for white students, even in the same field of study. There are obviously, many systemic barriers that need to be overcome here, but there's also some research that suggests that students of color are overrepresented in some of those shorter term programs that yield lower economic returns, things that have more single skills types of certifications or things that are not on a trajectory that leads to career pathway employment. So, we think this is obviously very important. And so we've spent some time at the Department of Labor, which may surprise people, working on grants that support community colleges. We actually work very closely with the Department of Education's Office of Post-Secondary Education around these issues, because we really see community colleges as one of the key linchpins and drivers of workforce development for this nation. They're a very important partner, and that's where a lot of the education starts. So we've spent some time focusing on that. So if I can get the next slide. I wanted to highlight some of the things that we've been looking at as evidence of approaches that can help to close equity gaps in community college career pathway programs. So just to highlight these really quickly, because some of these are some of the things that we've built into the grant program that I'm going to talk about on the next slide. But some of the things that show positive outcomes are aligning non-credit and credit programs as a way to accelerate the time to completion and employment. People may have heard of, prior learning credit. Obviously, I'm sure many of you are familiar with. There's also the idea of, skills-based hiring as opposed to focusing just on the certification, looking at the actual competencies that have been gained instead of just the credits toward a completion. There's also the idea comprehensive student supports is a very important aspect. And frankly, in all of our workforce training grants, we focus on providing robust supportive services to participants because there are so many other factors that can impact completion, whether it's childcare issues, healthcare issues, transportation issues. These are key things that can provide that kind of supportive wraparound services that are needed to support completion of a valuable certification and credential. And then finally, there's always an ongoing need to improve data and tracking. And that means, making sure that you're measuring the right things. I mean, there's a saying that some folks say about if you don't measure it, it doesn't matter. And that's not necessarily true, but sometimes it can be hard to measure the things that do matter. So we're really trying to focus on ways to identify equity gaps and ways to measure where those equity gaps are improving and how they're improving. Next slide. So really briefly, I just want to talk about a recent, the main community college focus grant that we have. And we've had 3 rounds of this grant. They're called the Strengthening Community Colleges Training Grants. I will note that there are several of the California Community College System grants, colleges are part of our grants between round 1 and round 3. So far we've awarded 135 million in grants to 39 grants and 39 grantees. And this is a mix of consortia of community colleges. For instance, one of our grantees is the Los Angeles Community College district. Sorry, couldn't think of that word. So that's a consortium of all the schools there, as well as some individual community colleges. The real goal of these grants is to help community colleges build their capacity to create these more in-demand, well-paying career pathway training programs, as Ms. Sanchez spoke to. But even more so, after our first round of grants, we really started focusing on those equity gaps that I mentioned. And so we've asked that applicants identify what the equity gaps are that they plan to address as part of their capacity building as they develop this curriculum, focusing very specifically on targeting some of those historically marginalized populations in very specific ways to improve their own outcomes, whether it's enrollment into specific in-demand pathways or persistence and completion of those programs. Next slide, please. So here I just want to speak to, because I think there's a lot of what Ms. Sanchez said, and a lot of what we're talking about in general when we talk about living wages is really the idea of a good job. Not all jobs are created equal, and there are certain things that make a job a quality job. And we've really been working on focusing on this in the Department of Labor in the last year. We worked with the Department of Commerce to put together a list of good jobs principles. And I don't want to go into too much detail here, but the things that matter there are fair and equitable recruitment and hiring, quality benefits, ensuring that diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility is part of the culture of that environment. Having empowerment and representation from workers and worker voice as part of the work culture, having job security and safe working conditions, having a positive organizational culture that interacts with that worker voice, having living wages and consistent paychecks so that it's predictable for people, and then having skills advancement and career advancement as part of that job, what we again refer to as the career pathway. So next slide. I also just wanted to highlight this resource that we put together a series of roundtables. There were 3 of them that we recorded. These were webinars with our Chief Evaluation Office. We have our own office that does evidence building on our programs, helping to understand what sort of workforce interventions, training interventions, education interventions yield positive employment results. And so we did this series that really focused on looking at equity in community colleges. And so there may be very helpful information and resources based on these 3 roundtables. And I provided the link here where you can see it, which is our, I also just a promotion of our workforce community of practice for our community college programs, which is College Connections. And there's a link to these specific roundtable recordings on that link. Next slide. One other thing I want to mention, and I think this is really timely given the data that Ms. Sanchez shared, our Chief Evaluation Office has done a huge meta-analysis over a variety of different career profiles and longitudinal surveys of workers that we call the Career Trajectories and Occupational Transitions, or CTOP, because we like our acronyms, dashboard. But the idea of this dashboard is it provides an ability to look at sort of the career transitions that happen. What sort of occupations lead to career growth in a career pathway? There are identifications of what we refer to as launchpad occupations, and those are occupations that are more likely to lead to career and skills advancement. I think all these are very relevant things when you're talking about, making sure that your Black students are connected to those in-demand jobs that have growth potential, that pay decent wages, what we refer to as, at a minimum, mid-level occupations, those that require beyond that high school diploma. And so this is just an example of the types of information that's available on CTOT. And if you go to the next slide here, I just wanted to give a little screenshot of what you can look at. These are a little faded because I just focused on one here, which is education, legal, and social services. But there's also, in keeping with the statistics that Ms. Sanchez shared, construction, early care and education, healthcare, information technology. And you can look at all these and get a sense of what the average starting wages were, what the average wage growth was over 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. And there's other parts of this, occupational clusters, look at how different types of occupations are grouped together within an industry in terms of being connected in somebody's career pathway, as well as the occupational trajectories and transitions that speaks more specifically to how certain occupations can lead to other occupations. I think these are all really important tools for community colleges in developing their career pathway curricula and thinking about what are the kinds of credentials and skills that will lead to this growth that we want to see. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to wrap things up, I just wanted to provide some of the links. And again, I'm happy to put these in the chat as well. I think somebody asked about putting them into the chat. But again, the first link here is where you can view more information on the 3 rounds of community colleges, including who those awardees were. It also has abstracts for each of them that will tell you what occupations and career pathways they're focused on, and for rounds 2 and 3, what the equity gaps are that they're looking to address. We're really excited that we're also going to be doing evaluation tied to that, and we'll be building evidence and sharing out what we learn from those grants. I can also say that public information is that we will be doing a 4th round. I can't speak to more about what that 4th round will entail, but I can certainly say that it will build on what we put out for our rounds 2 and 3. And we're really excited to continue to build information and evidence about what works in addressing equity gaps. And then again, some of these are the other resources that I mentioned. You can look at the links there, but I know there's a lot more content, so I will stop there and turn it back over to Dr. Handy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you for the work that you're doing at the Department of Labor and your continued support to close equity gaps within the California community colleges. So lots of information that you just gave us, and is very timely. I want to now bring in my co-moderator, Katrina Linden, as she's going to take us through the professional panel. And we have some really well-established professionals with us here today that are going to continue talking about transitioning into the workforce. Katrina, are you ready?
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you again, Jen. Hi, everybody, back again. My name is Katrina, but I want to introduce our next panel on workforce development. And first up, we have a quick round of introductions. Javier Romo, Deputy Director over at the Employment Development Department with over 25 years of experience in higher education and workforce development, including 14 years with the California Workforce Development Board, California Community College Chancellors, and Workforce and Economic Development Division for over 7 years. Next up, we have Cheryl Oldham, Vice President of Education and Workforce Policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and Senior Vice President at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. She has 25 years in public policy development and implementation, as well as in project management and government relations. Her previous experience includes serving for 8 years in the President W. Bush's administration. And of course, we all met Sandra earlier, so I won't introduce her again, but we do have her here as our Interim Vice Chancellor of Workforce Development over at the California Community Colleges. And finally, excited to introduce a friend of mine, Dr. Sujin Jez, CEO over at California Competes, an organization that develops nonpartisan and financially pragmatic recommendations for improved higher education and workforce policies. Dr. Jez previously served as Associate Professor of Public Policy and Administration at Sac State, the Director of the CSU Student Success Network, and an academic advisor for the California Executive Fellows Program. A lifelong learner, Dr. Jez is an accomplished researcher with publications across the nation with a focus on issues of workforce development, career technical education, college readiness, and institutional effectiveness. So as we get into this, I know I introduced you all already, but we'll go around real quick and have each of you introduce your name and the role within your organization that you serve and share a bit about what gets you excited about the work you do. And so we can go down the line. I'll start with Javier.
Good afternoon. It's a privilege to be here. My name is Javier Romero. I'm the Deputy Director of the California Employment Development Department of Workforce Services branch. So basically my role is I oversee a portfolio that exceeds $1 billion. One administers what we know as the American Job Career Centers in California. We have in our portfolio things like the Community Economic Resilience Fund, which is a $600 million program for the administrators of that. And then we have some very specific population targeted grants. And what gets me up every morning and excites me about my job is some of us, and I say us, me included, didn't get it right in high school. Didn't have a household which had people that went through the education system. So we were figuring out as we went. And every day I think of that population. I think of the people I grew up with. That's not that far from Compton College in Almani, in which none of us had households that had people with degrees. I think of in this topic, this week is family to me. I have family members that their biological family comes from Compton. I have a nephew and a niece that success is family and personal to me. So it's a privilege to be here.
Great, thank you so much. We'll go over to Cheryl.
Hi, Katrina. Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here with the rest of the panel. My name is Cheryl Oldham. I am with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. The Chamber is, for those that might not be aware, the largest organization representing the interests of business in the world. And the Chamber Foundation is a C3 affiliate, and our sort of purpose and mission in life is to harness the power of business to create solutions for the good of America and the world. And what sort of gets me excited and the work that I get to do, which is focused on all things education and workforce, is this idea that one of the biggest challenges that we're facing, I think for individuals, but for the business community, for the nation, is this system of education and workforce that is aligned to the needs of industry, such that we're meeting the needs of our workers and our students. And so that's the work that we get to do. I get to work with the business community all over the country, helping them to create pipelines of talent. So like when Jen was talking about the grant programs that she has at the Department of Labor to give to community colleges to help them build those pipelines into open and available jobs, we're helping the business community. We're situating the business community to be a partner of the community colleges so that there is that alignment, so that the programs that they're creating in community colleges are leading to those good jobs that we're all so interested in. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Sandra?
Well, thank you for having me here today. I think everyone's heard enough about me this morning. As you know, I'm the interim vice chancellor for the Workforce and Economic Development Division for the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office. And I've been engaged in this work for a very long time. And, you know, as was stated, one of the things that I am most proud of in terms of the work that I've done in assisting underserved populations and first generation college students, as a first generation college student, I can very much relate to what our students are going through, but also, you know, growing up in the South Bay and in the Los Angeles area, I am familiar with the struggles that many immigrant communities have to endure when they are trying to transition or to attend college and then transition into the workplace. So I'm really passionate about helping our students build professional social capital, because I know that's the one thing that helped me move up and help me to access greater opportunities. So I will leave it at that.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. And we'll round it out with Sujan.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Sujan. I'm the CEO of California Competes. We are a nonpartisan policy research and advocacy org. And you know, this work is deeply personal to me as a first-gen student, you know, a Black woman, daughter of an immigrant. And I think particularly on the transitions to work and thinking when I finished college, I had no idea about what jobs there were and what made sense for, you know, that transition. And it really was a random email I received that led me into my first job in investment banking, which is obviously not where my career ended up. But I think about how much more we could be doing to help students transition from college into careers. It's good for the student, and it's good for the state.
Thank you. Loved hearing all of what makes you all excited about your work. So I'm going to jump us over to our next question. In your role, how are you working? I heard a lot about how you're supporting your communities, like the very intentional work you're doing, but specifically, how are you working towards advancing Black student success within your organization? And we'll start with Cheryl.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Yeah, so one of the things, as I referenced in sort of opening remarks, is this idea that we're giving the business community, we're sort of situating the business community to be effective partners with community colleges and other organizations. One of our sort of key initiatives is working directly with community college partners to connect students of color to industry aligned pathways. So we've got community colleges, their employer partners all over the country who we are working with to give them the tools to do this well and working together. What we've heard in our work is oftentimes, you know, how workforce development has worked in this country in the past is we sort of put it on the supply side to fix a demand side problem. So we don't sort of give the demand side the tools they need to communicate exactly what are those competencies they're looking for, what are the skills required, what are the open and available jobs, what are they looking for, and we just sort of put it on the supply side to fix that problem and to create the pathway themselves without that necessary partner. And so it's a lot of hard work, but it's incredibly satisfying when in the end you see for example, a community college pathway that was not giving students entry into jobs. And then when they come together and work directly with those employer partners, they build that pipeline together, and it is sort of a win-win for everyone.
I love that intentionality and just solving the problem right on. Thank you so much. Let's go to Javier, and then we'll jump over to Sujan and Sandra.
You know, I couldn't agree more to Cheryl's comments regarding industry being essential. I would also include, I have been embedding in our portfolio and being a voice for, yes, equally important to aligning students to state-of-the-art curriculum and training programs that reflect the needs of today's industry and position them well to grow and evolve with that industry. For us to be able to give them that opportunity to be successful in those programs We have to address their barriers outside the classroom and outside the work site. Those are the things that prevent them to actually take advantage of opportunities that exist today. We have to create more opportunities. We have to address the barriers. So, and I've also made clear from anybody I could talk to that none of us alone could achieve our equity goals or have any kind of significant impact in the Black community and the young people and their prospects unless we together with industry create the state-of-the-art programs with education, community colleges, adult education becoming the primary training program that we all turn to, workforce system, help make those connections, help with case management, help with identification of goals, and then all of us, with the help of community-based organizations, help address the barriers such as food insecurity, housing insecurity. There's a program that we have that we're trying to bring to scale in the Bay Area, and they've basically done a few things. One is stipends, because they need money. Often they leave their programs, they don't complete because they have to make money. They also, as I've mentioned in my own situation, I didn't have coaching or mentoring. We need to provide that. And then a lot of them are dealing with trauma. Poverty, racism embeds a lot of trauma in individuals that needs to be addressed so that they can be successful even when they complete and start their careers and advance in their careers or go on to more advanced training to make more money, like the concept of industry cluster. We're going to make them make that transitioning to the next level. We have to give them the tools beyond job specific stuff. I'll leave it with that.
Yes, those additional services are so important to the entire student experience. All right, Sujan and Sandra, in a speed round for this one, if you can give us a few thoughts for this.
Yeah, I feel like I can do this pretty quickly. I feel like everything that California Competes does is really focused on this work. We believe that, our state's long-term economic growth depends on shared prosperity, and that really is about addressing equity gaps. And as the data that, Sandra showed, the opportunities for Black Californians, it's just so uneven. And I think that's part of our work, and then addressing and building, actionable, fiscally pragmatic policy solutions that institutions and state leaders can take hold of.
Thank you. And so I just want to say that in my role as the Vice Chancellor for Workforce, I administer the Strong Workforce program, the California Apprenticeship Initiative program, the California Adult Education program, and many others. And this work that I do touches the lives of Black students across our system. And it is very much in line and connected to the vision for success that established the framework for how we support and advance our underrepresented students across our system. And some of our colleges are already doing this work really well. So proud to say that we have a lot of great work already in our system. But I will tell you specifically what I'm working on as I thought about this question. What am I doing specifically towards advancing Black student success? One, we're focused on career mobility for all students through our regulatory action and our statewide investments that ensure that our colleges have the infrastructures to support and disrupt the career trajectories of our students, ensuring that they have access to experiential learning and work-based learning opportunities. That is a #1 priority for me and my division. The other piece is regional infrastructure enhancements, making sure that our colleges have access to data and resources that support greater, more equitable student outcomes. One of the things that we learned through that landscape analysis was that colleges have disparate access across our system to the data that they need to be intentional about the work of serving underrepresented groups and students of color. And so how do we then enhance that regional infrastructure that we already have to make sure that we are equitably serving all students? And the last thing that I'm focused on is that first job. One of the things we learned from that landscape analysis is that the first job and supporting student career trajectories is so important to ensuring that they have the ability to land that first great job that catapults them to greater success. Because what we learned in that study was that that first job has an impact for their lifetime earnings. So how do we support our colleges in creating unconditional belonging on our campuses? And that really means understanding and recognizing that many of our students work while they attend school. How do we also then leverage all of the social and career networks that we have access to, such as our alumni networks, to provide greater access to social capital for our students? So those are some of the things that I am working on very intentionally in the next year with our system and pushing our system to now that we know better, to do better.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. I know we could continue this conversation for so much longer, but really just want to thank all four of you for joining this conversation today. And as we think about what's next for the future for us in a post-pandemic world, those pipelines to career opportunity are just so vital for our community college students, especially in those high-skilled degrees, and ensuring not just getting a college degree, but what's next after that, and creating those pathways for education and career. So thank you all again for joining us. And I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Handy to close us out with our student panel, because what is this week about if not students, especially Black student success? So I'll pass it over to you now, Dr. Handy.
Excellent job, Katrina. Excellent job, professional panelists. We have 3 students with us today. We have Marie from San Diego College of Continuing Education, Trayvon from East Los Angeles College, and Desiree from Santa Monica College. Welcome, students, speakers, and student panelists. Thank you for being with us today. We're going to just jump right in, and I want to begin with asking you, please let those who are watching know, what is your current job or career that you're in, and what were the main barriers or challenges that you experienced while trying to transition into the workforce? And if possible, Desiree, we'll start with you.
Hi everyone, my name is Desiree Campbell. I'm first assistant PA, a lot of stuff, try to keep myself busy. I would like to say that there were a few barriers with entering into the workforce. I would like to say lack of experience and like imposter syndrome, feeling like you don't belong in a space because there's not many people that look like you. That would definitely be the main deterrent, and just confidence building is what could be helpful for that barrier to be alleviated.
Yeah, imposter syndrome is real. Thank you for that. Trayvon, let's just hop right to you. What is your current job, and what were some of the main barriers and challenges making that transition from college into the workforce? I think you're on mute, Trayvon.
Thank you, sir. Nice to meet you all. Good afternoon. My name is Trayvon Reed. Currently, I work for a community-based organization based out of Los Angeles called Brothers Against Banging Youth, or the acronym is BABY. What we do there is prevention for the LAUSD and some charter schools in Los Angeles for the kids, and safe passage for the kids to school, some middle schools, some high schools. For me, the barriers to get to where I am now, I think the last student spoke about it well, was the imposter syndrome. Also, I guess, trying to transition from the thinking of a person that's receiving services to the person that's administering the services. Although, you go through your training, and as you go through your training, you start to learn a lot more about how everything is affecting, trauma is affecting you, and how the drugs are affecting you, or how lifestyle is affecting you, or the environment altogether is affecting you. And, it's a hard way to, it's a hard thing to do, to just flip a light switch and now it's the 360 and now I'm administering services. But I say that, but in the same time I say it's also a gift that a lot of us with lived experience bring to the field for the people that are coming through these programs now, because we know exactly what they're going through at the moment, at the time. Sometimes, they don't even have to say it. And so I think that lived experience can be sometimes a gift and a curse. But I think that was my biggest, kind of shed my lived experience skin a little bit and get into my service provider shoes.
Yeah, no, and that's a real challenge that students go through, making that leap and that transition from being the one that's served to now being in the position of doing the serving, and kind of the mechanics that come with that. Thank you for sharing that, Marie. Tell us briefly a little bit about your story and where you are currently, and some major barriers or challenges that you experience making this transition.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marie Safari. I'm a former student, and I am a project assistant at San Diego College of Continuing Education in the Car Works Department at Mid-City campus. So my story is just short. I'm from Congo. I'm a single mother with 4 children. I speak 7 languages, and I have a bachelor degree in math and physics from my country. When I came to US as a refugee, it was a big challenge for me to adapt to the American culture. It was hard for me to speak English because it was not my language. And I was afraid also to communicate with people outside. So I applied to receive welfare programs, and they referred me to the continuing education to learn English. And I thought that improving my English would be a way for me to get a job. As a Car Works student, I met with my counselor who helped me to get a work-study job on campus. I got a lot of support through the Car Works, which helped me to achieve my education. And in 2018, I started working at Car Works office as a work-study translator, helping immigrants, students from different countries and different languages. And in 2021, I got a promotion and became a project assistant and I assist students with enrollment process at continuing education and Car Works programs. So I have a goal. My goal is to obtain a contract position to support my family and further my education in the US. And my educational goal is to become a counselor. But the big challenge and barrier was just being a refugee, communication, learning the American cultures, being a single mother, and raising 4 children. So trying to balance school, work, and the family has been a huge challenge for me. That's the challenges and barrier I had.
Yes.
For transition into the workforce.
Oh my goodness, your story is so inspiring. Just so many challenges that I'm hearing. I mean, I could pull on these strings and these threads and we could just get into a heavy discourse. But in the interest of time, I want to ask you all, go back into you being a community college student prior to transitioning into the workforce, that moment, that time. And as you knew, it was a reality that you were going to get out and you were going to land in the career field, in the workforce. What was it that you had hoped you had in place someone to talk to or a program that you think could have made that transition a lot smoother for you? In other words, we want to kind of leave our practitioners on the line today with a tangible takeaway. What is it for them that they can go back into their respective communities and colleges and say, we got to do this because for all the Trayvons coming, for all the Desirees coming, for all the Maries coming, this is what our students are saying they need. What would have been that thing, that person, that system, that program that would have made that transition smoother going from community college into the workforce? Marie, we'll start with you.
As I was a student and become CarWorks student working in offices where we had a huge amount of students coming different countries and different cultures. I think the way to support all Black students, including refugees students, is to offer a final line to quick training in conjunction with our formal education from different countries in this country. And in addition, I think offer more apprenticeship programs and training to support us to get full-time jobs. Because we live in the marginalized communities, we are in constant need of the basic needs such as housing, sport, childcare, and transportation. So a lot of refugees, in order to get jobs in this country, they need work documents. And the process of getting the work documents can take years. But having agencies on campus to assist or troubleshooting student paperwork would facilitate the process of them to get a job. A job can help them to stand their family.
Thank you, Marie. That's beautiful. Desiree, let's jump to you. What would have you needed or you could see is in need that would make that transition a lot smoother from a student to the workforce?
I definitely think your teachers and your professors giving their own life experience is one factor that could be helpful, letting them know that, hey, making mistakes, it's not the end of the world if you don't know how to feel to ask questions. And like Marie said, lots internship opportunities, apprenticeship, just being more helpful for your student rather than, I know we're adults, I know we're college students and it's like you have to take the reins by yourself, but a lot of us, we didn't grow up with all the tools, so it's like we might need an extra hand or somebody to be like, hey, there's this and this if you didn't know. And just to be more helpful, give more grace, be more kind. Not everybody has the opportunities that you've had. And networking has helped. Like my opportunities from my Black professors, internship opportunities that got me a 2-year production coordinator position in live events with lots of A-list celebrities, panels, and opportunities where it's just something that you don't get just from going straight into college. You need somebody to give you extra step, extra push, a little help.
Love that. Love that. Thank you. Thank you. In the interest of time, I want to make sure we get your voice, Trayvon, as well. 30 seconds or less. What is it that you want to leave educators, practitioners, legislators, right, with that would make the transition from community college to the workforce more smoother for our Black students? 30 seconds or less, Trayvon.
I think for me, initially, my first thing that I wanted to make sure when I transitioned was that was paramount on my mind was that I was going to be good in my position and actually help people. Once you get there and you start to figure out, the rigors of working in the social service sector, you do need additional support. So a lot of the things that have been said on this panel already from Jen Smith or, some of the speakers earlier, the data is good, but sometimes we just need a little extra, assistance, a little support, like she said, grace, And I don't want to take too much time, but I don't want to be all doom and gloom. We're in a golden time right now. With all of the things that are happening in society, we are at a time where we can make the most impact right now. So, let's just support each other, because there'll be a lot more people coming into this industry with the lived experience like me, whether it be reentry, whether it be immigrants, or whether they be veterans or homeless or whatever the criteria that they fall in. But I think one thing that one of the speakers spoke on earlier that kind of hit the note perfectly was we need support for all of our outside barriers so that we can be effective when we clock in to you at 8 o'clock.
Ooh, man, that is a mic drop, Trayvon. That spoke to my soul. So we can be more productive and engaged when we clock in. I love that. Marie, Desiree, Trayvon, I cannot say, hearing from you, your voice, your story, it matters. You're speaking truth to power. We appreciate you. We honor you and we thank you. We also honor all of our other guest speakers. We want to honor all of our sponsors. We want to honor all of the guests who are logging into this webinar. Thank you. Thank you for Black Student Success Week. Day 3 is in the books. Please stay tuned for at 1:30 for the after party, the after hour, as well as stay tuned for the student hour later this evening from 5 to 6. Come back, day 4, Dr. Bull will be back, Katrina Linden will be back, and I'll be back, and we'll be here for the Black Hour, 12 to 1. Thank you. We appreciate you. Peace and blessings.